There are only 3 reasons why a property is either an absolute massive success when selling or a complete car crash. That's the agent, the pricing strategy, and the marketing. Get one of those 3 things wrong, you are dead. That's it. And you know that. Listening now, you know that. And today's guest understands that at a level most agents don't. I'm joined by Regina Mangon, one of Ireland's most respected agents. And this isn't theory, this is lived experience from someone who's consistently delivering results. We get into why confidence matters more than commission, why overpricing is fatal no matter how good everything else is, how to actually create competition, not just hope for it, and why the best agents don't chase listings, they choose their clients. Now, if you've ever felt the pressure to get the instruction, or if you've ever been tempted to say things that sound nice instead of what's true, this episode is for you. Let's get into it. So, Regina, right, I often say the reason why someone's house will be an absolute massive success are the same 3 reasons why it could be an absolute car crash. And that is the agent, the pricing strategy, and the marketing.
Interesting. I was watching a video with another agent who's a client of Tom Panos, and I love Tom Panos, and he was talking about the agent that you hire, and it really resonated with me. So he said, if you're a seller and you're selling your property, interview a number of agents and imagine the agent that you want to hire and you say, I'm not paying that fee. I'm going to just pay 1%. I'm not paying you a cent more. He said something very important, which I say to my team all the time. How the hell can you hire somebody who is going to give away their money so fast? What are they going to do with your money? So you have to hire an agent that's a really good negotiator. And we say that all the time. We go out and we meet sellers and they say, listen, we've met somebody else. They're only going to charge 1%. You're looking for 1.65. I'm sorry. We like you, but we don't want to pay that. I'm like, well, I'm sorry. Imagine you want me to be able to negotiate the best price for you and I give away my fee. That they don't add up. So I'm going to talk to you about the difference between our service and the price that we get for our clients. And you have to be confident. In order to be successful, you have to be confident. And again, I quote the great Tom Panos. You don't want a whiff of commission breath off you where you're going in and you are feeling desperate. You've got to be confident, and a seller needs to hire someone who is confident in the house, confident in getting the best price, confident in marketing, and confident in negotiating the best price, because the seller wants to pay the least price and the buyer wants the highest price. And our job is to broker the best price.
Absolutely.
So I hope I answered that. And in terms then of marketing, a picture paints 1,000 words. If you look at any cookbook and you look at the cookbook and you look at the picture of the baking, the cake, the shepherd's pie, the steak, the garnish, there's professional photography gone into that book. The book has to look beautiful. And as our marketing consultant said, everything that Liberty Blue does should be beautiful. Mm-hmm. And one of our values is that we take pride in everything we do. So your values, your culture is very important. That's kind of like the baseline for everything. So for us, and our clients, we want to present the house as best as is feasible. So sometimes people don't have very much money. They may not have the budget to paint the house. They may not have the budget to change the carpet, and sometimes they do. So you have to work within what's feasible. Now, in the past, I had one lady who had no money at all, and I needed to sell her house because she needed to move out from that house, get away from her ex, take her children away, and move forward in their life of happiness. It's a huge deal to sell a house for somebody. Mm-hmm. So it needed some staging. So I had some pictures in the office and I came and I said, look, if you hang them, I'll lend you these. And then I did in that one instance cancel our marketing fee of $350 so that she could change one of the carpets. because I knew she needed to do that. Now, I wouldn't do that very often, but the presentation is important. Cleanliness. So it's to advise the clients the house has to be pristinely clean, wash, scruff marks, all of that, and beautiful photography. We once had a young chap working with us who took a photo and the two bins were outside the house. I said, think about that. You need to go back and retake that photo. It's an inconvenience, but it's not good enough. So it's really about having standards, presenting the house in the best possible light. Usually painting, decluttering, cleaning go a long way sometimes. And obviously dressing beds. They're just like normal stuff that most decent agents should know. And having difficult conversations. So when you hire an agent, you have to hire a confident agent who is able to deliver those uncomfortable messages in a most respectful way. And I think that's really, really important. Respectful. What's the outcome, Mr. Seller, Mrs. Seller? What do you want? And really, it's mostly about where they want to move to. So we want to be in Dungarvan, that's near where I live, because we want to be near our grandkids. So you're selling the dream of moving to Dungarvan, what life will be like in Dungarvan, what it'll be like when they get to spend time with the grandkids. And so, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, in order to do that, we need to present the house really well, have beautiful photographs. I'm going to have tough conversations with you because we're in this together. And do you trust me? And it's not, yes, no problem, you can clean, I understand. No, I don't understand. You want to move to Dungarvan to be with the grandkids. So it's really those conversations. Around pricing, the wrong price is fatal. So you could have beautiful photographs, you could have a really lovely agent, you could have presented the house lovely, but you're at absolutely nothing if the pricing strategy is wrong. And I can think of loads of examples, but I think the biggest pressure that agents are under is when they go out and meet Mr. and Mrs. Vendor, they're competing with the other agents who've already been there. And they're competing with, well, they told me that we get 750,000. You're going, I think it's a 675 house. And then, because it happened to a colleague of mine, an amazing colleague, and I said, what happened? Why did you list it at that price? And she said, well, the pressure because of the price that the other agents gave. But this particular colleague in the industry is very sharp, but she succumbed to that pressure because we all do from time to time. But I think that's where you build in the conversation. Look, I'm prepared to try it at this price and test the market, but we're going to have a tough conversation in 14 days or 10 days. Is that fair? Because I think we all know there is a timeline. You need to know what that is in your market, that if there isn't viewings, if there isn't any offers within a certain period for us, it's usually the first 2 weeks are absolutely the hottest 2 weeks. So you go into week 6 and you've no viewings, and then you're having this conversation, like you're into sticky ground. So it's really having those tough conversations at the outset, getting rid of the commission breath, having confidence, and maybe listing at the higher price is the right thing to do for that seller. And maybe you're not entirely sure, but you are setting out the terms. This is what we need to do.
Absolutely, because you are 100%, and I love what you said, you're in it together. You're in it together with your client. And that's what's really interesting. And what a lot of agents don't actually show is their vulnerable side, in the sense that when we take a property on, whether we are reducing the commission unnecessarily, right, or whether we're getting full commission as we should, we're also taking the anxiety and the stress of that seller as well. Do you know what I mean? And I think also your point about Tom Panos, if anyone's not really listening to Tom Panos, they absolutely should be listening to him, especially his early episodes of Million Dollar Agent back in 2005, 2006. And one of the things he said that's absolutely stuck with me, which is the reason why fees should be a lot higher, because it's not the promise of a price that achieves maximum results, it's the process. And I think I know how hard I work, which is why I won't allow anyone to tell me, but John, the other agent said their fees 1%. Go with them. Go with them. If we're working together, we're on 2%. And the reason for that is I understand the process is not a smooth road. It is going to be full of bumps. And if I'm just a 1% agent and it's about getting market share and as many properties as I possibly can, then great. I may have sold 126 properties in a year, for example. I haven't done that, but let's say I have done that and they were all at 1%. But yet I'm ill. I'm ill. I can't actually I'm just all I'm doing. I have no family life. I'm not even enjoying the money that I'm earning. Versus if I go, well, actually, I've sold 126. There's 126 case studies there of all the things that went right and all the things that went wrong. Maybe if I went, well, actually, I'll just half that and charge 2% instead, and then of course my work is
Absolutely.
half.
And I think the case study is really important, that you're bringing the evidence to the client and the client is saying, no, they said they get 750. And you're saying, well, can I show you the houses that we've sold? Like, for example, there are two houses that come to mind at the moment that we sold. The clients were just fabulous. What they both said to my two different colleagues, whatever you think, we trust you. I mean, that's the absolute dream client. So there was one particular gentleman that I dealt with, Keith is his name, and he actually is involved in the industry. He's not an estate agent, but he's involved in the industry. And he's sharp. He knew kind of what the house, but I said, I believe that we should list your house at 475 in order to get a 5 in it. Now I said to him, I don't know what 5 I'm going to get because nobody knows. That's the truth because but what we do know is that if we present it right, we price it right, we negotiate well, we use our bidding platform because we love that because our buyers love that. It's transparent. And we put all those tools together. And what we've learned, we will get you every penny that we can. We got 5. And he said, I totally trust you. We got way over the expectation, way over what we expected. But again, the process was there, as you said, John. And from the very start, he was just fantastic to work with. Then there was another couple. Again, they said to my colleague, John, whatever you think, we'll be guided by you. And we firmly believe, not for every house, but for a lot of houses, price to entice. Get people through the door. The system is different in Ireland because we share the bids. We don't say we can't tell you what the bid is. It's probably more transparent and we're heavily regulated, which is really good. But it gets people through the door. If you overprice a property, you just can't get people through the door. Therefore, you can't sell it.
No matter how good your marketing is, if it's overpriced. Why do you think that is though? In your experience, why do you think if you've overpriced the property, why do you think that no one's coming through the front door?
Interesting. A quote that I heard from, I can't remember which guru that I have listened to because I won't own it myself. Buyers are on the market longer than the properties. So they probably know the market better than anybody because they're getting notifications and they may be on the market looking for 12 months. I've had a lady who's on the market 3 years. So they know what prices should look like. They're also factoring in maybe renovation works if it's got a low energy rating, if it needs insulation, and people have budgets. And in Ireland now, I'm sure it's the same in the UK, but well, we do have a hot market, but properties that need loads of work are slower to sell. And people factor in how difficult it is to get a builder and to get work done. So they move slower. So buyers are smart. They really are. The other thing is, it has to do with emotions. So when a buyer is looking online and they haven't gone to the house and they haven't walked it and they just look at the price, then it's a commercial decision. They're saying, oh, that's too dear. I'm not going to go and look at that. If it's priced to entice and you get them in the door and next thing they're imagining their friends coming for dinner parties, the kids running around the garden, the dream, how life could be. Now you're into the sweet spot of emotions. And then the commercial side starts to drip away. So I think that's really, really important. It's about, and then obviously it's about creating competition. What we tend to do is, if possible, bunch the appointments together, people outside coming in their slots. We give them time, whatever the house needs, maybe 30 minutes. Somebody else is lined up. They're driving past the other car. There's a sense of, you have to create FOMO, fear of missing out. So those first few weeks are so important. So it's a whole process, as you said already, John. So yeah, and you want them to envisage cooking there in their life. And then the bidding platform, which I love, the transparency. And I learned recently that 40% of buyers place their bids out of office hours. So you want them to be able to place the offer when it suits them. The same way when people buy online, and setting it up that it's easy for them is very important. So they go and they look at the property, they fall in love with it. And the woman is very important in this because the lady, in my experience, is usually the boss. If the woman says, no, I couldn't live here, forget about it. If the gentleman says, yeah, maybe, no. If the man says no and she says, I love it, there's possibility of a chance of them turning, right? So you've got to get them to fall in love with the house, get them through the door first, and hopefully create competition. And that's how you get your best price for your client.
And I think that's probably everything you're saying there is the reason why you get paid the fees you get paid because you deserve it. Because what you're actually doing, in my opinion, right, is when you said about lifestyle, selling lifestyle, I totally agree with that, fully subscribe to that. Because interestingly, I say to sellers, you're not actually selling bricks and mortar. You are selling a lifestyle. And that, imagine that person you was just describing then that's falling in love with the property for various different reasons. Well, if you're selling the lifestyle, there'll be maybe 4 or 5 or maybe 6, maybe 10 other people also wanting that lifestyle as well. And the property, when it's speaking to that lifestyle, becomes more that emotional sweet spot that you're talking about, which is like, oh my God. And this goes into the realms of things like consumer psychology, why people actually purchase. What is it? What are the 10 things that they want, that all of us want? For example, save money, make money, save time, avoid effort, escape mental and physical pain, get more hygiene is one of them. But the big one is status. And so again, lifestyle and status is like, we all want status upgrades, and we're never going to do anything that's going to embarrass ourselves personally. And moving on to the bit around understanding, yeah, if you can get the female on board, the husband is more likely to go ahead with it versus the other way round. That to me tells me that's why you're very successful, is because you are not just, it's not just a transaction, is it? It's so many other things.
No, it never is. And I did want to say that it's really about doing the right thing and helping people. And it's going the extra mile. It's caring. It's understanding, because for us, the majority of people who are selling, they are selling for a reason that's really big in their life. It's not a commodity they're selling. They're selling their home. Yes, it's a tax-free asset. Their only tax-free asset, I always say. That's why we don't want to leave any money on the table, because it's nearly worth double to anything else you'll take in. But there's a big story for everybody, and we have to understand it. So I wrote a LinkedIn article, which I published in the last 24 hours, about how tough February was for me. And I told the story about when I was skiing last week, that the instructor, I was at the top of the mountain on day 2, and he said, stop looking down all the way down the mountain. You need to ski from left to right. You're just skiing across and you're skiing across. And I was explaining how I overcame my fear. And then I explained how I took someone's skis and I had a really stressful day. And then I nearly packed it in. And then I had voices in my head and it said, Regina, you're not a quitter. Anyway, I got a like from a former client that I hadn't spoken to for ages. And I straight away connected with him. And then I got a text from him this morning. And this client is in his autumn years, significantly autumn years, and his wife. And he said, you have no idea how that email, that newsletter resonated, because we've decided, because of our stage in life, we're going to relocate back to Canada. When he was telling me the story, I was actually crying talking to him, because now, not like bawling, just gentle tears. I was really overcome by the impact of my newsletter. And I think that's so important, to show vulnerability, all of us, that we're humans. And we had a great conversation. And of course, he said, you rang me straight away, Regina, and we want you to sell our home. So Maria's been on the phone to him and she's gone out to meet him and his wife next week. So it's somewhere to stay in touch with our clients. And sometimes we don't know they're watching. Our social media presence is really important. And I do highly recommend monthly newsletters on LinkedIn. They're very powerful. Um, and it's a really way of, I've decided to show, I suppose, the real me and my stories rather than talking about the market because that just fits for me. But we never know when someone is watching. But because of their age and time in life, they're not going to be able to declutter. There's certain things they're not going to be able to do. And we have to make sure that we work in a way that they're going to be comfortable with. It's not a one size fits all. But the most important thing for us will be to make this as stress free as possible, that we don't add to the anxiety of the massive mountain they've got to ski down. As he said, we're going to ski across after reading it and we're going to hold your hand. I said, we're going to make sure it's as smooth as possible. And he said, I totally trust that because we know what you're like. So that's important to care. The money follows, believe it or not, when you follow the process, as you mentioned, John. You have confidence, you charge the fee you deserve, you give your clients the attention and the straight talking that they deserve, not telling them what they want to hear all the time. You agree the terms that if it's going on high, when we're going to reduce it, if we're not getting have the tough conversations at the start, and the relationship on trust grows, and then they will listen to you. That's my experience. And then you get them a great result and you stay in touch and you get great Google reviews and the whole cycle follows. And that's how your business is successful, in my view.
But why though, do there will be so many agents, including the ones that do overvalue, including the ones that do say things that sound nice. In their minds, they will talk a really good game of everything you've just said. But when it actually comes to it, they revert back to just get the instruction, just get the instruction. Don't have it, just make it sound easy. Just get the instruction, just get them sign the contract. Why do you think that is?
Well, I understand that only about 50% of sales go through in the UK, properties that are advertised. Is that the right statistic?
Yeah, 53%.
Okay, so for us, I would say we sell 95% of our stock we list. So we're not up for vanity listings. Now we are a different market because there's very few chains. So that's a big impediment in the UK market. We've very few chains. We do have chains, but they're not ideal. Our market's different. We've a shortage of stock. We have a different culture, a whole load of different reasons. We're not interested in putting a load of stock up in our window, even though we don't put stock in the window, if you know what I mean, online. We want to list to sell. The fear, the anxiety when we have a property that's not moving, that's a problem. We're in it with the seller. So we're not interested in, as I say, cooking buns and then throwing the stale ones in the bin. We're here to do business and we don't want to be busy fools and we don't want vanity listings. And as Sanjay Gandhi said to me, my great mentor, we're not for everyone. So that is the difference in my view.
Yeah.
Vanity listings, they're no good. I think it would be much nicer to go out fishing than list a property that you are not going to sell. It is an absolute waste of time. I'm a business person. Why the hell? That's like having a car in a car sales room with two wheels.
Yeah. I spoke to a guy yesterday and we were talking about all the reasons why, or he was saying all the reasons why someone should buy his property. Now, the type of buyer, the ideal buyer, the pool of those buyers is tiny. And I said to him on the call, I said, right, let's just take it back. You and me now are going to buy your own property. Talk to me about what we are going to do. And he went, we're probably going to try and get as much off as we possibly can. I said, for this particular property, we're absolutely going to be doing that. So there is a massive difference between probably the 430 grand it's worth and the 700,000 that you want. It's a HMO, it's bringing in £7,000 a month. It's obviously the gross yield is gigantic. But when we start to look at the commercial side of it, i.e. what the lenders are going to say, if it's going to be a lender that lends on it, we need to think like that. We need to think as a surveyor working for the bank is going to be thinking. We can't be just going, well, this makes sense on paper, but the reality is completely different. So, and again, it's having that hard conversation in a way in which is like making him see sense, because I totally subscribe to what you just said then. You're a businessman, you're a businesswoman, you are making commercial decisions about who you actually work with and who you don't. And that is also, I think, some agent, well, most agents that in my experience just become one of a number. You know, when they're saying I'm charging 1% because I want to remain competitive, and I'm like, yeah, but you've got a 1 in 3 chance of not actually getting the property. And then are you going to be remembered when that agent, the initial agent, falls on their sword? They're not coming back to you because they are just going to be jumping out of a frying pan into a fire. Versus,
And here's the other thing, John. We've spoken about the bit with the selling property for clients, but at the end of the day, what are we doing it for? We're doing it to create a business for ourselves. And the question I would ask any one of those 1% agents, what's your profit margin? What is your profit margin? And sometimes people get taken away. Like, it is often the agent with the low cost model who has an office at home or has a hot desk, who has small overheads, maybe VAs. They're doing maybe X number of listings in double digits as opposed to 3 digits. And they're probably way more profitable than some of the high street agents with all the bells and whistles and the swanky walk and the whole lot. And really, that is the reality. Is turnover is vanity and profit is reality. People need to look at their bottom line. How successful is their business? Can they go on holidays? What's their lifestyle like? If they get sick, who's going to, do they have enough money in the bank? All of these questions are all part of this conversation, because you can be a busy fool with nothing at the end of it.
yeah, 100%. Now, the one ingredient that you think all agents should have, whether that's in Ireland, whether that's in England, Wales, Scotland, whether that is in Canada, where your colleague or client's going to go back to, or America, what do you think the one quality that an agent can have is the thing that absolutely makes them super successful?
You have to be a hard worker. I mean, if I was to pick all the things, if you said the one thing, you have to be a hard worker. You've got to put in the graft. You've got to put in the time. You've got to put in the hours. You've got to sweat it for your client. And we all know there is never only one thing in business. There are lots of things. There is no one silver bullet, but nothing can beat hard work. If you were to ask me for 2 more things, I would say you have to be financially savvy. You have to know what your profit margin is. You have to take in more than you spend. And as you rightly said, maybe sell less and charge more. Then you give a better service. You're happier. You enjoy life more. You show up more for your family. You live longer. You have a healthier life. So financial savviness, I do firmly believe in the power of mentorship. However that looks, I'm passionate about that. Or whether that's part of a mastermind group, having a mentor, listening to podcasts, you have to invest in your personal development and have a peer group that you can hop stuff off of and share things. I think that's just invaluable. And if you want to grow and level up all the time, that's just fantastic. That's an absolute ingredient for success. So there are 3 things. Sorry, John.
No, amazing. Thank you, Regina, for coming on this podcast. You've been absolutely incredible. And I'm so glad we eventually got to do it.
Brilliant. I appreciate being on. Thank you so much, John.
End of podcast. Mate, that is beautiful. If you take one thing from this episode, you don't get paid for listing property, you get paid for selling it. Obvious, I know, but it's still something we have to actually think about, right? And everything in Regina's talked about so far comes back to that confidence process standards and being willing to have the conversations most agents avoid. Because overpricing doesn't just slow things down, it kills momentum, it kills emotion, and eventually it kills the deal. Regina, honestly, an absolute pleasure. You are a proper operator, and I am very, very, very grateful for you coming on this podcast. To everyone else, massively grateful for you listening, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.